Alright, it's Ben with the DIY Homefront, and I'm back in the bathroom. We're trying to make it look better, where we had some sulfur water that corroded the fixtures. So let's see what we're going to work on next. You can see how corroded that really is. It just looks awful. And we've got the same problem with the piece up here. So for a little bit of history. So over the years I've had to replace some of the internal pieces inside of this. And I just ordered whole new ones. And I saved any leftover parts and put them in a Tupperware container. So let's go through those and see what we can find. So it looks like I've got a replacement chrome. And this looks like, you can see how the opening is and how that opening is. I don't know if either of these will work, but the only thing to do is to take off what we got and give it a shot. So I'll dig through this Tupperware container and see if I can find any other replacement chrome pieces. On some of these you have to take the handle off first, and I'm not sure if we're going to have to do that on this or not. So I'm going to take these two screws out and we'll see if this cover will slip over the handle or not. And I'm going to get lucky because we can remove this cover and not worry about taking the handle off. They're always open at the bottom and have a gasket around the top. And it's done that way so air can get in there in case it needs to dry out. Well, that one is definitely a no. Well, let's see if I'll get lucky with the other one or if we're going to have to purchase a new one. Well, this one definitely fits over the handle, but I don't think the holes are quite lining up. And if I look at it a little bit closer, it's not going to be flush up against the wall either. Well, there you go. You can see the gap between the cover and the tile. I'll have to see if I can find one locally someplace. Let's turn our attention to the shower head. If you want to take this off, you just unscrew it. And once you remove it, you can see that the decorative ring just covers the hole and that the pipe is just threaded into a brass fitting inside the wall. Well, here's the whole shower head assembly. We've got Teflon tapes on the threads for the shower arm. Then we've got a decorative chrome cover that covers the hole in the tile. Mine has a shut-off valve, and then we have the actual shower head on the end. Well, the only thing I had purchased prior to starting this project was a new shower wand with a hose and a clip that attached it to the wall. The hanging bracket only has some self-adhesive on the back. It doesn't even have a screw hole to mount it to the wall. It also came with some Teflon tape and a couple of rubber gaskets. And a gasket, I like the gaskets. According to the directions, we'll start by attaching the hose to the wand handle, and we'll put a rubber gasket in between the hose and the wand handle to make sure there's a watertight connection. Everything has a nice chrome finish to it, and I've learned from experience to just tighten everything the best I can by hand, and if I have to, use wrenches or tools to tighten it up, because the tools will leave scratch marks in that chrome surface, and if you can tighten it up by hand, you don't have that problem. Next, I'm going to remove the shutoff valve that's on the end of the shower head to see what it looks like, because I'm going to have to get a replacement for this. I don't think there's going to be any way I can polish this up and make it look any better. Man, that corrosion is bad. Well, the first new piece I'm going to attach will be the shower wand holder, and I'll start by removing the old shower wand holder. It should be held in place with some sticky tape and a couple of screws. If your shower is tile, you'll need to be careful because it's easy to chip or crack tiles. Well, there you go. It is off, and it looks like it was held in place with only one screw, and that was in the center of a grout line. I'll get a razor blade and clean this up the best I can before we try to stick the new one on. I'm not trying to dig out any of the grout in between the tiles. I'm just trying to scrape off some of the corrosion from the top. Hopefully the new shower wand holder will cover up any discolored grout. I struggled and had to use a razor blade to get the cover off of the two-sided tape. And then once I tried to attach it to the wall, it just didn't stick. I'm not sure why, but it just did not stick. After struggling for a few minutes, I decided to drill a hole in it and attach it back to the wall with a screw, just like the previous one was held in place. It was really easy to drill a hole through this chrome-colored piece of plastic that was the wand holder. I just needed to make sure that the hole was slightly bigger than the screw I was going to be using. Then with a slightly smaller drill bit, I double-checked the hole that was already in the grout. I wanted to make sure it was big enough for the screw and that the screw wouldn't end up cracking a tile when I went ahead and screwed it into the wall. You really do have to be careful. It only takes a second to chip or crack the tile. I got lucky. This tumbled edge tile isn't going to look out of place with another chip along the edge. So I will use a stainless steel screw from my scrap pile and I will just screw this into the wall. If at any time it seems like it gets loose or wants to come out, I can take it back out and fill that hole up with caulk and do the same thing again. But the weight should be going straight down, so it should be just fine with just that one screw. Well, for the control arm, we're going to take the Teflon tape that came with this kit and wrap it around the threads. We'll make sure we keep away from the end because we don't want any of this Teflon tape getting into the water line and clogging up the shower head. And I'm going to put quite a bit of Teflon tape onto these threads because I want the Teflon tape to be the gasket and keep the water from leaking once I screw this shower head arm on. Another reason to use a lot of Teflon tape on the end is because you want the bend in that control arm to be pointing straight down. And you need to have a bunch of that material there so that it's taut when you screw it in. Otherwise, when you finally get it to the point where it's tight enough, your shower head control arm might not be pointing down. Well, here it is. I've got the shower head control arm so that it's pointing towards the floor. If I really forced it, I might be able to get it to go around one more time. But you don't want to do that because you don't want to put so much pressure on the threads or that piece that's buried in the wall. Because it's really easy to break that or strip the threads out if it's made out of PVC pipe. And that means that you're going to have to replace it, which means taking the drywall off or digging into the wall or trying to get to it from the other side. Even though I don't have the shutoff valve for the shower head, I'm going to go ahead and wrap the threads on the other end of this control arm with Teflon tape. And then it'll be ready when we do have the shutoff valve. Well, the next thing to do is to remove the corroded hose and shower wand that's connected to the valve on the wall. So then I'll use a rubber washer or a gasket or an O-ring and put it on the end of the hose so that way when I screw it to the valve, it seals it and becomes watertight. And once again, I'm just doing this as tight as I can by hand. And I'm going to use a product from my Air Force days called Never Dull. It will help polish up all these chrome pieces, or at least make them look a lot better. You can use whatever you feel comfortable with. I just find that these products, along with some of the chrome cleaners I use for the automobile rims, gives me the best results. And although Never Dull does work really well, it's still time consuming polishing that metal. And you have to make sure you get rid of any residue that might be left when you're done. Well, I hope it's obvious on film how much better it looks, especially the chrome on the handle and that external shutoff valve. Well, I'm back from the hardware store and I've got a universal Delta kit and a shutoff valve for the shower head. So let's take a look at these. This is the old water shutoff valve. And you can see it's got a fairly small opening. And here's the replacement. It's got a little push pin that slides from one side to the other instead of a turn knob. but the opening was about the same size. I'll put on a generous amount of the Teflon tape, and then I can take the shower tip and screw it on to this end of the valve. And here you can see I've got so much Teflon tape wrapped around the threads that it's hard to actually even get the shower head started onto this valve. The other thing you'll find is that most of these shower heads are meant to be directional, so they have a big pivot in it. And this pivot is going to make it extremely difficult for me to try to hold on to the shower head and tighten it. I'm going to have to get some kind of wrench. These channel lock pliers will do a good job of holding that. And I'm going to turn the other end as hard as I can by hand and call it quits until I test it. Now for around $58, I was able to find a Delta tub shower trim kit. And I was very careful to open it up without damaging the packaging because I wasn't sure if this trim kit would have anything different than what I've already tried. And unfortunately, it had the same type of shower rings that I had already tried. So this kit was a bust. I have some company coming in from out of town, and I really wanted to get this bathroom shower cleaned up before they arrived. So I just wanted to remind you, this is what it looked like before I started working on it. And here's what it looks like right now. I took some Never Dull to it, but I wasn't getting anywhere very quick. So I ended up getting my drill out and my chrome polish, and I've been working with this cloth wheel and my drill ever since. Well, I'll speed this up while I keep working on it. The goal is to try to make it look as good as possible and to save $58. If you didn't know any better, you would think this was a brand new trim piece I was putting on. It really turned out good. Be ready to struggle. It can be hard trying to get these screws started. They also are pretty long. I was really surprised how well this turned out. I mean, when you take what it looks like right now and compare it to what it looked like before, it's just such a difference. Well, the only thing I have left to do now is to take this shower head with that shut-off valve attached to it and screw it onto the arm that sticks out of the wall. There's not a whole lot to grab a hold of on there, so I'll use my channel lock pliers and get the last little bit tightened up. Well, there you go. We got a new shower head and a shower wand, and for all practical purposes, everything else looks like it just got installed too. Well, that's going to wrap up this shower refresh. Everything looks good and clean now. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, check out my playlist, and I'll see you in whatever video comes next.